Hello and welcome to the dissertation module. My name is Mark Collins and I'm part of the radiotherapy team at SHU, and in the next kind of 5-10 minutes I'd like to have a bit of a chat with you about the dissertation module, the process, and have a look at the dissertation site. So you'll have two sites available for the dissertation module, and when you look on your home screen of Blackboard, you'll see one in the module area and one in the organization area. And the one that we're going to use all the way through the process right up to the end and handing is the organization site. So this is the one that I've got on screen here, and this has got everything you need to know in terms of developing your ideas, your proposals, and writing your project up. So this is the first site that I would head for. So before we go any further in terms of looking at the various sections, I thought it's worth just having a think about what is the dissertation process about. So this is the module handbook, and I'll show you how to find this in a moment. And this is really what we're looking to achieve over the next year. So the reason that we're doing this is to allow an opportunity for you to undertake a project of greater scale than you may have done in the past, an opportunity to undertake some extended period of self-directed learning, and where you're learning new things and covering new ground, and then to tie it all together and essentially do that by writing it up in the form of a thesis at the end. So let's go back to the organization site. So by now you should hopefully be familiar with Blackboard and how we tend to lay out our sites, and this module is no different to any other that you've done on Blackboard. So down the left hand side we've got our tabs, and I think probably the first place to have a look would be in the student cafe. There you can introduce yourself, have a look at what other students are doing, what work they're doing, and then there's a section for frequently asked questions, so that might be worth a quick scan through initially. And as you work your way through the site, and if you have any queries, that's often a good place to start looking. And there's quite a kind of database of commonly asked questions there. So fairly early on in the process, you'll be allocated a supervisor, and your supervisor is there initially to help you develop your ideas and help you to get through the proposal process, which is the first thing we need to do before you can commence your project, and then to support you throughout your project and the writing up of your project at the end. So within this module, it's a module across the whole of AHP and nursing, so there's lots and lots of students on this module from lots of different disciplines, which is great, particularly when you have a look in that student cafe. So you'll be allocated a supervisor by the module lead for your group. So if we look on the supervisor group, you can see here that these are the people who are responsible for the module, so the dissertation leads within your speciality. So have a look on there, and they're your first point of contact in terms of any queries regarding this module. And if we scroll down this page, you can see there's the contact details for the various supervisors and leads within this module. So let's have a think about what we need to do in terms of the process. So I'm sure you'll come to this module with some rough ideas about maybe what you want to do for your project. It may be along the lines of some work you've done previously, something that's going on in your department, something that interests you. So the first thing we need to do is turn those ideas into a workable project and develop them into a proposal. So everything you need to know about developing a proposal is contained in this tab here, your proposal, and there's some great resources in there. So examples of past proposals, what makes a good proposal, and then the paperwork that you need to complete during this process. And there's also a presentation here that I would encourage you to look at fairly early on, and that guides you through the process in terms of how we develop from an idea to proposal. And one thing I would like to just point out to you is this document here at the top of the page. So I'm just going to bring that up, and this is really key in terms of developing your ideas. And I think it's important early on to get an idea of where your project falls under this list, because this will really influence the level of ethical approval you will need, and it may impact on you deciding a number of different factors within your project. So I'm not going to read through each of these, but as you can see, there's 5 different types of project that you can conduct, and I would encourage you to have a discussion very early on with your supervisor and also the R&D department within your centre or institution to determine where your project is going to fall into, and if it falls into one of these top categories, then you may well, or you will need to liaise with your R&D department, and it will involve completing some paperwork with them and getting some approvals from them. And so as we want to complete this whole process within a year, I think it's really key to start those discussions early and start making those contacts nice and early. So once you've got an idea of your project, where it's likely to fall in terms of ethical approval, you then need to start working through the various sections of the proposal and starting to develop that. So this is where you will work with your supervisor. I would also encourage you to try and have some sort of mentor in your workplace or a colleague that's been down through this process before, whether it be an MSc or a PhD. And I wouldn't underestimate the amount of work that's involved in developing your proposal. It's a really key part of the process, and spending time at this stage developing it and thinking about all the different factors of your approach for your study is really important to make sure that your research that follows is nice and smooth. So as I said, there's the forms here that you need to complete, but what I would do is have a look here in this examples of proposals, and there's some great examples from different types of review, so quantitative, qualitative work, some systematic reviews. So these, I would use these to help you see where your project fits, and maybe use them to get some ideas about the depth that you need to go in for the proposal and what sort of thing the reviewers of the proposal will be looking for. So the next tab down, the dissertation guidance one, contains everything you really need to know in terms of what's required to meet the requirements of this module. So there's 2 different tabs, one for the 60 credit, one for the 45 credit. If you're unsure which one you're on, then contact your dissertation lead just to double check that. So if I click on the 60 credit one, and you can see the student handbook's in there. That's a really nice detailed handbook that really talks you through the process of everything you need to do and what's expected of you throughout this process. So once you have your proposal approved, then it's time to start actually working on your project. And this is obviously the largest part of the dissertation process. And so I would encourage you to keep in regular contact with your supervisor throughout this process, and use the resources within this tab here, this research resources. So there's lots and lots of great information and resources in here about different types of research, different methods. So if we were to click on this one, you can see about analyzing qualitative information, about how to use in vivo, something about reflexivity there. So depending what category your research falls under, there's likely to be different resources within there that you'll find useful. And as you're working through collecting your data, carrying out your review, doing your systematic review, whatever category of research you're doing, I would always bear in mind the end product, which is going to be writing up your work in the form of a thesis. And there's 2 options you have got here, and I would encourage you to discuss this with your supervisor and to see where your project fits in and which method you'd be best to go for. So I'm not going to spend any real time discussing that in this video, other than that the 2 options are, you've got an option to write up as a 15,000 word thesis, or option B would be to write a 9,000 word thesis and then carry out a viva at the end of that process. And so the 9,000 word option is broken down into 2 sections, but you will receive 1 grade overall for that. So at the end of that process, whether you do option A or option B, you will get 1 final grade for your piece of work. And as with the other sections, there's some nice examples and some resources there to help you with that. One thing that I think is really important to highlight is this section here. So if you're carrying out a project, anything other than a literature-based project, then you will need to maintain a site file or a project file, and it's vital that you do that. So everything that you need to do in relation to that is contained in that section there, and if you're unsure, I would encourage you to discuss that with your supervisor. So I hope you found this video useful, and I'd just like to wish all of you luck with your projects, and I hope you enjoy this process of developing your ideas and turning it into a real piece of work. So if you have any queries from this point onwards, if you've been allocated a supervisor, then that's always your first point of contact, and they're there to guide you through the process and help you with any queries and concerns that you have. If you haven't been allocated a supervisor yet, then as I mentioned earlier, if you go to the Supervisor Contacts section there, then the leads for your various professions are there, so contact those and I'm sure they'll be able to help you as well.